Welcome to it. The weekend edition of the Average Joe Sports Show is here. If you had the odds at 7:54 Central Standard Time,
that's heavy-ish.
You are a winner. So, truth be told, Kraynak was ready to rock. Doleman was waiting, and I straggled through with. I have a very below average cup of decaf because that's all we have here.
It doesn't even count.
Read the labels. So Kraynak's computer is giving him the middle finger. He'll be ready to rock and roll. But we love having you in with the Average Joe Sports Show, 7-day-a-week extravaganza. Proud of Fairbury is right there. Bill Doleman, Chris Schmidt. Lot to get into, man. Nebraska baseball getting it done at Lafayette, which is big time. There's still more hand-wringing with the Nebraska-Tennessee decision. And, of course, Husker basketball. Michigan getting whacked at home last night by Sparty. What are the odds Michigan loses 2 in a row? We'll figure it out Monday night with Nebraska basketball as they get back, and we'll dive in. We'll get our starting 5 shout-outs going. You have multiple ways to find us and subscribe to us. We hope you do so with the Average Joe Sports Show. Like and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, and, of course, with email, can send that the AJ Sports Show at gmail.com. Follow on Twitter, can also watch on Twitter, AJ Sports Radio. Billy D, what's a good word, man? Thanks for jumping on. Good to have you on back-to-back Saturdays.
Yeah, thanks for letting me play 2 days on the weekend. I know there's a pecking order and background checks and all of that. That
clearly no background checks.
Well, yeah, you got to flunk one, and then you can get on the show on the weekends. And so it's nice to be able to play on Saturday morning with the whole gang. And I'm impressed with those who come into the stream to hang out and understand the. We really don't tell time all that well on this show, except for Monday through Friday. The weekends are the weekends. It's kind of a way of life, but nope, a lot of fun and lots to talk about today.
Well, Kraynak is efforting. He was chatting with us. It was awesome. And then he lost all ability for sound. We could hear him, but he couldn't hear us. You know what's awesome? Is it's going to be damn near 40 degrees today.
Yeah, how about that?
And it's going to feel 80 because it's been 20 below for X number of days in a row. So retweet that to your friends and family as well with the Average Joe Sports Show YouTube and, of course, Twitter, AJ Sports Radio. He is back and ready to go. We've got him. Who was on assignment last week. Mark Kraynak is here. Kraynak, we got each other now?
We do.
How are you, brother? Good to see you.
In more ways than one. Look at us being back under this new banner. It's not a new banner. It's a new banner for this.
It's a new old banner.
It's the weekend edition, the Average Joe Sports Show. We'll get our starting 5s going, but how the hell are you, man?
Oh, man, it's good to be back. I'm doing all right. Doing okay, except obviously some audio issues. Like literally plug in these headphones, right? Plug them in. They work. Then they stop working. Who's our audio guy? Do we have an engineer? Do we have a technician?
Right now, he is either in jail or asleep. Elijah is on the bachelor party trip down to Arizona.
Oh, that ought to go well.
Yeah, good. Belly up in Scottsdale right now.
Right.
Perfect.
You sent a text last night, I think around 11. Hey, just letting you know, I definitely won't be in this morning.
What time was it?
About 11. About 11, which means it was 8 or 9 their time. So
I definitely won't be in. Which means we should probably call him.
No, I will not do that. No. So let's get our starting 5 shout-outs. Uncle Larry was in at 4:50 this morning. Son of a Larry. Uncle Larry, we love you. Jake from Ohio.
I hope Larry did other things. besides just log in and just look and wait.
Jake from Ohio was in at 5:40.
Ohio.
Kobe says, I'm in, ready, 7:45 sharp.
What are we, chopped liver?
Ish.
Oh, it's not talking about Gary Sharp.
No.
Yeah. And that's 8:45, 8:30.
Yes. So Tuck checks in, asking and wondering if Elijah has good hangover cures. Fair.
Being 20, what is he, negative 2 years old? He's fine.
He's got age on his side right now.
Yeah. Got
For
Tiger
now.
blood still. Yeah. Yeah.
Red Knight 79. Can Husker basketball win a game in the big dance? Let's hope they get dancing. Red Knight, but I hear you. Steve said 7:49. That was his prediction. The other Dave is here. James here. And help me pronounce this, Kraynak or Doleman.
Ophelia up.
Thank you.
Uh, I get it.
Arlo's here. Good to have Arlo in. Charles checks in. Wow. This is Charles saying Elijah's probably at 0.2 in a random Airbnb, wondering if it's him or the ceiling fan that's spinning. You guys are on one this morning. Buck 380. I just saw it pop up on Twitter. Hi, guys. Try never to miss. Thank you much. So let's have this hard conversation. Kraynak, did you have hotel and flight already booked for Knoxville and Rocky Top? 2026, 2027 is no more with Tennessee. Athletic Director Dannon's laid out the why, and Nebraska fans are still saying and wondering why not. That'd have been fun. That'd have been so much fun. Rocky Top, road trip, and then, of course, hosting that orange under the lights, presumably.
He did cite the main reasons he cited was because of the stadium reconstruction and having to pay for some of that cost. Am I right? And so
they're going to be 20% less capacity all of 2027. That is a financial hit. They need 8 games. So it is going to be Northern Iowa. It is going to be Miami of Ohio. They have 2 games that are locked in instead of the one for Tennessee. I believe you have Oregon and Washington that year coming to Lincoln, which is cool.
Does that math add up? Do you know what I'm saying? Does that add up to where it's like, okay, you got 20% less capacity, but you're changing how you're doing tickets anyways. You're changing how you're doing, like you're getting rid of the grandfather clause where people can have amazing seats without paying a donation. That's already being taken care of. Presumably ticket prices will be up a little bit. And so how much of a hit are we, like, mathematically? I'm not trying to doubt the guy. Troy Dannon's seems to be above board. I'm just saying, connecting those two, I'm just saying, no, got to get out of that Tennessee game because we need one home game. When we're talking about a team that gets $100 million from the Big Ten every year, you're just kind of like, really?
The payoff was $62 million and change for the Big Ten. That's
for the Big Ten.
Yeah. That's what each member got.
And what's a home game worth? What's a home game worth?
Bill, would you say 4, 5 million, 7 million? Is that too high?
No,
I'm just talking out loud to the city.
I was thinking about the economic impact. I remember way back in the day, it was like the $4 million per home game impact to the city of Lincoln, and that's probably doubled over the last, I don't know, 20 or 30 years since I can remember that number. Yeah, I mean, it has to be a significant amount of money to lose 20% of whatever stadium and concession receipts you're getting. Now you do have Aramark, who's bumped up your concession deal. Yep. So I get that it's a hit, but it's still Nebraska-Tennessee. You would have had every possible inch of that stadium filled up. So you're, I don't know. Why not try to postpone it? At least spin it that way. Where
I wonder if that was floated, and I don't know this, but I'm saying if you're Troy Dannon, you're Danny White, and you're down at New Orleans last week, because you were, right? I mean, you're talking about what's next for college football. Does Dannon say, hey, we're going to be running up against it with this godforsaken stadium expansion, or I should say renovation's a better word, forgive me, but need to postpone it, can we?
Well,
No.
and what about postponing only the Nebraska game? Why not? Can we keep the game in Knoxville? We got to have this in Lincoln, but because
you got to
we
have
are
it
going,
full strength.
Yeah. Why? Okay. Why not just say, look, we'll have the return game in 32, 33, 30, whatever, because games are scheduled so far out in college football. NUGPA says Dannon said they asked Tennessee to postpone, but this series has been postponed twice already, and now third time.
Right. It was they signed the contract in like 2006 or something like that.
It was 6. It got pushed to 2016, 2017. Then that got moved to 2026, 2027. So this goes back to, think about the eras this has spanned. Now, Nebraska ended up playing Tennessee in 2016 anyway in the Music City Bowl, but not in the regular season. Tennessee's been able to come back, fellas. It's been nice for them, but they have gone through the ringer again with just some of their coaching hires. So they finally got it right post Fulmer with Josh Heupel. Can I just say something here? And this may be in bad taste. Did you ever think in your life that Josh Heupel would not look like the Josh Heupel that was throwing touchdown passes in 2000?
Oh, so we're starting the average Joe by fat shaming.
No, I'm not. I'm saying,
Heupel.
I remember seeing Josh Heupel at Big 12 Media Days with you.
Yeah, he was.
We're there, and Stoops is drinking, Bud Heavy bottles at 10 o'clock. How y'all doing? I mean, that's like our first rodeo as college students, covering, doing the whole KRNU stuff. Mm-hmm. Kraynak and I are in Kansas City. And we're there, and that was the year 2000, and that's the year Oklahoma came out of nowhere to win the national championship. I was at that Nebraska-Oklahoma game where Nebraska was up, and then boom, here storms back Oklahoma. They beat Texas, K-State, Nebraska consecutively to take over the number 1 spot, and then they beat Florida State. Rocky Kalmus, that's your guy, Kraynak, the guy who can't
Rocky Kalmus
put 2 sentences together but could hit the hell out of you.
Well, yeah, you could understand why too. Like
his name's Rocky.
His name's Rocky. He puts his head on the fan every morning.
But Heupel, the old Mike Leach recruit from Snow Junior College in Utah. I mean, he would throw. If you're a kid, you wanted Josh Heupel as your neighbor to throw the ball when you're playing 500 in your backyard up. I mean, that's how high those punts were. Those deep shots. We have a bunny sighting.
Yeah, I think what happened was he probably just never unlearned how to eat as an athlete, right? Like that's a problem for people. No, you think I'm kidding? I swear to God. Like, because when you're an athlete, you're expending a lot of energy, you're burning a lot of calories, you're working out all the time, and so you have to eat a lot. But then when you stop, and you keep eating like that, well, that's what happens. That's what happens.
I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed I went there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you did. You're just basically like, "Good morning, everybody. Josh Heupel's fat," and you're like, "Okay, oh, wow, yeah, sure is." But it's because I talked to Chris Bober about that a while ago. Remember the offensive lineman, Omaha South, Kansas City Chiefs, New York Giants. That's what happened to him, right? He had mentioned that. Yeah, when you're an offensive lineman, you are just throwing down 6,000 to 7,000 calories a day, probably, to play in the NFL. And then when that's all over, have to really retrain your body on how to, like he ballooned up until he kind of realized like, oh, I need to cut my calories in like half, you know? So
And
that's probably what happened to Heupel, and we should probably call him and tell him that.
Walking into this conversation and wanting to turn around and run is the man, Brandon Vogel from Counterread, counterread.com. It is the weekend edition of the Average Joe Sports Show. Like and subscribe. YouTube is where you can find us with the Average Joe Sports Show, AJ Sports Radio on Twitter. Vogues, Counterread, man, you guys are just killing it. We love having you on. Thanks for making 2 Saturdays in a row. How are you? How are folks in Tennessee reacting? Has there been any Nebraska flags being burnt this morning?
Riots in the streets, at least for me. Like, seriously, I don't remember how long ago that game was announced. I think I still lived in Boston at the time. So
almost 20 years.
16, and I was like, well, going to that one. And now I live in Tennessee, and it kept getting moved and kept getting moved. But it was intriguing from the outset. Nebraska's played 4 road games in the SEC, and one of them was at Birmingham, at Legion Field against Alabama. So technically a neutral site. So it's been in an SEC stadium for a regular season game 3 times. So that was the appeal to me for this, is like those things don't happen very often. And as this one kept getting moved, like, I understand the rationale. It's, I think, constructed to be, you kind of can't fault it. Like, what are you going to do? Ask Nebraska to take a pay hit to play this game? Selfishly, yeah, that is what I want them to do, because it's a good game. But so I think you can understand the logic behind it. It doesn't mean anybody has to be okay with it. And I'm disappointed that they won't play that game. And I don't know how much longer games like that are for this current college football universe.
Brandon, here's how long ago that show was scheduled. We were doing the original Average Joe Sports Show, and I had an intern named Chris Schmidt who was running the board and being allowed to talk every now and then.
Whatever happened to that guy?
I had a shock collar on, and if I said something which likely was going to happen, very stupid, or for sure something that was very non-compassionate, like talking about a quarterback's weight.
Yeah. Well, since I
Bill would push the button, and
the promos were like, "Hey, we'd love to have you join us on the Average Joe Sports Show. Fire up your Commodore 64, or go to your AOL dial-up, and contact the show on email."
Since I am in Tennessee, I'd like to bring Josh Heupel on to comment on how Schmidt looked when he was an intern at that stage. Josh?
Right?
Yeah, do it. No, that'd be fine. I had too much hair gel going. I was probably heavier then than I am now.
Yeah,
and I didn't take care of my body very well from the college era through my 30s. To much of my 40s.
Now I'm like the reverse Heupel.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
So you're going to win the Heisman soon.
So
probably
Brandon,
not.
Does the math add up though? Like how much do you get for a home game revenue wise? Has that do we know about that, or even
for the university or the city?
Yeah, for the university.
That's a really good question. I know a while back there was they did a study, and it's probably 15, 20 years old, that put the economic impact of a home game at like 5, somewhere close to that. So it's probably 7 now. So there's that piece of it. I would guess a home game's probably in that range, 6 to 8 million. When you factor everything in. In terms of revenue, who knows what the costs are? That'd be interesting too, to put on a home game. But yeah, I mean, we're talking, I think, a decent amount of money. But I mean, there's also just the timing of this with all the ADs of our 2 overlord conferences gathered in New Orleans for whatever voodoo they could cook up. Like, and then all of a sudden, I just imagine, I don't know that this was the case. It was just like, the two ADs being like, yeah, we're not going to do this, right? And it's like, no. There's no incentive to do it effectively, which is unfortunate.
Well, right. But that's where I was like, just kind of attaching it to, well, we're going to lose some revenue and we need the extra home game when we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars of stadium renovations and all the money that comes in from the Big Ten. It's just kind of like that doesn't seem to really add up. But I get why they said it. But really, it does seem though like it has everything to do with, you got Oregon and Washington and USC and UCLA and Michigan and Ohio State and Penn State in your conference. Like, you're good. You don't really need that out of conference juggernaut, kind of like you used to pad your resume. Your resume is going to be fine without any of that. That's probably more what it was, right? Like if you're Matt Rule, do you want to do that? Do you want to do Oregon, Washington, Tennessee in the same year, or do you want to mix Miami of Ohio in there instead?
Yeah, I think the risk reward of those big kind of power conference intersectional games has changed as the playoff has expanded. Like if you win one, yeah, it can help you, down the road if you get into a strength of schedule debate. But the better path seems to be like stay undefeated as long as you can, or as close to it for as long as you can, and let somebody pick apart your strength of schedule, similar to Indiana this year. That seems like a more certain path to a 12-team playoff than getting credit for, maybe you lost by 4 on the road at a good Tennessee team.
Keep in mind too, one of the great things I think Trev Alberts did was he put out that survey a few years ago. And who knows, maybe there was a response on there that said more Bowling Green. Fans demanding more Bowling Green and Miami of Ohio. We haven't seen them for a while. It probably harkens back to the Bill Jennings era. The people just wanted to do something like that again. Here's my idea, and I mentioned this on the show yesterday. I think that you need the Big Ten ACC or a Big Ten SEC challenge, and every 2 years the commissioners have a show, and they say for the next 2 years, save the date. Alabama, your Big Ten partner is Wisconsin. And,
like a lottery system, they just pull it. That'd be great. Actually.
Well, you got AI can handle it. AI can handle it now. We didn't have AI back in the original Average Joe Sports Show. We were just ahead of the curve on everything. And then you say, all right, Michigan, your SEC partner this year is Auburn, and Nebraska, Florida. So for the next 2 years, you got a home and home. And then 2 years later, they do it, and it's just paired up. You got to save the date, home and home. And it'll be made for TV like all of college football is. And I think that's a brilliant plan that is now trademarked and copyrighted to Doleman Media, LLC, and the Average Joe Sports Show.
Question for you.
Sounds like a shell game, man.
Do you think they go beyond just bowl pairings? And it worked out well. I mean, look at how Michigan Bama did back-to-back years. You got the playoff, the Final Four team playoff, overtime thriller where Michigan outlasted Bama, and then you had last year's Michigan team that won the bowl game, and it was at the Gator Bowl. I forget what it was, but that was pretty awesome to see those two brands in a non-playoff bowl setup at least trade punches. Do you go regular season and bowl with this partnership? Do you just make it a bowl thing, or do you just make it a regular season thing? Is my question if you had your choice. I love the idea of the unveiling where you get the pairing up like the Gavitt games. I mean, really, there's no, because let's be honest, like you get the Big Ten ACC, and you get those every year, and it's usually Nebraska getting a Virginia Tech or somebody that great. They're in the ACC, it counts, but it's not Carolina, it's not Duke. You don't get a big dog. You're not ready for a big dog, but you don't get that brand. You've got so many choices, even on the the different tier of getting a Vanderbilt or an Arkansas, and both those programs are fine. They're winning ball games.
Well,
But
Vanderbilt and Northwestern are playing every year. That's just a given.
But if you're the SEC, you have zero excitement for Northwestern. You have zero excitement for really about Northwestern or Purdue. So no thanks, we're good.
Yeah.
But
the equivalent on the SEC would be what? Mississippi State is kind of whatever. South Carolina, pretty good program, but just kind of
I think that'd be
a little on the periphery.
There's a little history with Nebraska, South Carolina in the Sterling Sharp era. I think South Carolina would be fun. They're playing really good ball right now. I also think Dannon,
not a huge brand though, right?
No,
not a huge brand.
no, but
not football wise.
It'd be a respected opponent for sure, and a really respected win, especially if you go out there and do it. I think Dannon, once this stadium thing gets handled, Vogues, he's not prohibited from going shopping, and there could be a makeup game, so to speak. Not just Tennessee, but go get a big dog. Go get a Notre Dame. Go get me a Texas. Go get me bring Colorado back in to the fold. And you have Oklahoma looming. You have Arizona looming, which is nice. But who would you?
Or do you? Or do you?
Don't do that to me this morning.
Bowling Green is like, hey, what do you think? Huh? Why go down to Norman? We'll come to Lincoln. Do you remember when you first heard about Bowling Green? And you're just like the first time you've ever heard of that as an institution. Bowling
Was that
Green.
Urban Meyer?
You're just like, well, I just remember being like, is that a private school? What the hell is that? And then you find out it's like an actual city name, and you're like, why did they name city Bowling Green? And I'm sure there's a reason. And they have a college, and they're playing D1. Like what?
Last item on the agenda at the city council meeting, and we all good with that? All right, let's go.
I know. It makes no sense.
Yeah. Vogues, let's spend a minute here. We've ran Tennessee through the ringer here, and Husker basketball, man. They are probably still in. Most metrics say that. They are hard to love when they play so poorly, but man, you've got some dudes that are pretty good.
That sounds like conditional love, Chris.
It is.
I thought it was all kinds of weather. We all stick together.
Here's the problem. This basketball team has given you all kinds of weather.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, they've made you cry, all right? With not just losses, but how they've lost. And I don't know, you don't seem so surprised, Vogues.
Well, no. Is anybody really? It's kind of the wild ups and downs are kind of the through line of Nebraska basketball, with just a couple of exceptions. And here we are again, over these remaining games. To your point, like I think most places you look would have Nebraska in. The group of people who probably feel the least certain about that are Nebraska fans, because they've been here often enough. Like whatever their record ends up over those remaining games, like at this point, yeah, I would say that they're in. They need to be real careful, because this is what they didn't do last time out, of not giving people a reason to exclude them. And that's the danger with like how they lost to Penn State and the team that they lost to, the last place team in the Big Ten. So it's going to be, I think, a little bit of a white knuckle ride for the remainder. I would expect them to come out and play well. I would expect them to respond, against Michigan on Monday. But you boil it all the way down, it's still a team that when they tip the ball off, it's like, which one are you going to get?
They're a little tough one to figure out too, compared to maybe what we thought coming into the year. Like Penn State being able to pressure Nebraska like they could. I just thought they had better ball handlers on the team, right? Just between, Worcester and Ulis, like Burke's out, of course, but felt like they had enough guys to be able to do that. And then I also I thought the 3-point shooting would be way better? Because it seems like they had guys that have done it before, but Esigen's been kind of, really one of the only consistent threats from three, but can barely even say he's been consistent. He's also been taken out of entire games. They're a weird team, aren't they? They're a strange team to try to figure out, and they're huge. They have really good size, but yet they get destroyed in the paint by Penn State. I don't know. They're tough to figure out. I can't remember a team quite like this one that it seems to have pieces, but they don't. The level of consistency is wild for this group.
Yeah, the 3-point shooting will come and go, of course. I mean, they're so defined by like how good Gary and Williams are, which is just, what they are at this point. Games that go, I mean, the Northwestern game started like this too, and they steered out of it, but they just tend to get beat up on the offensive glass in those games where it doesn't go well, which is scary should they make the tournament. Get matched up. Hopefully Nebraska wouldn't get matched up with Texas A&M again, but like a team like that is the sort of team that just murders Nebraska. And to see that from that Penn State squad though this week was still pretty shocking. Like there are teams like that where you can just be like, oh, this would be a tough one. That shouldn't have been one of those games.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be interesting to see, how Nebraska gets rolling Monday. Sparty was really good last night. Michigan looked, their bigs just were not feeling it. They got out toughed by Sparty last night. Shot selection was not good for Michigan, and I just don't know that Michigan looks that bad, plays that bad 2 games in a row. I mean, they'll refocus. They'll have to kind of find themselves, and they'll get on the road. They'll get out of Dodge. They just got whacked in the rivalry game, and they're going to look to take it out on somebody. Is Nebraska ready? I guess my biggest problem with Nebraska is I'm not expecting a 6 seed or a 4 seed. They've shown the ability to play at an 8 or a 9 seed level. And the biggest thing is when they've lost, it's one thing to get beat. It's another thing to really just have long stretches of not give a damn. That's what it looks like. And they know the formula. Like Fred had to beat the formula into their head after the 6-game losing streak. If you decide to commit to playing defense and rebounding, and then let the offense happen, they're good, but they just hate playing that way, Vogues.
Yeah, they do. It's a little bit, unfortunately for them, of course, outside of their nature, which isn't by design, but for whatever reason, it's been a struggle to get that piece of it consistently. And none of us are here worried about seeding at this point. It's like just get in. But to your point, you end up at that 8-9, even 7-10 range, like more so 8-9. You're probably going to face a pretty physical team from another power conference.
Tennessee.
So, we'll see if Nebraska can improve their situation. Of course, you still got the Big Ten tournament to bolster a resume a little bit too. So we'll see where things go.
Vogues, what's happening with you, bud? What's on the docket for Counterread, counterread.com. Tell folks what you and Aaron Sorensen are doing and how they can subscribe.
Yeah, you can head to counterread.com's twice weekly newsletter from myself and Aaron. We do a couple of other free newsletters each week too. So you can get on the list for those and hopefully see what we're about. And want to get those 2 exclusives. I'll kind of have a weekend recap for Monday. I do want to write some thoughts about this Tennessee game a little bit more and just scheduling in general, because I think in an auto bid future, which seems a little bit inevitable, non-conference scheduling gets really interesting depending on which way that goes. So,
Vogues, appreciate you much. Thanks for jumping on.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
There he is.
Thanks, Brandon.
Counterread's very own Brandon L. Vogel. It is the Iron Horse. It is Gary Sharp time. And we say hi to Sharpie this morning. How we doing, dude? You're frozen.
No, I'm not. I was just playing with you guys.
Oh, wow.
That was really good.
That seriously, I was like,
It's like
that
you're
is a
it's like you're
compromising.
practicing.
Thank you. I'm going back to my days of, theater when I was in high school.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
What were you?
No, you
Did
did
you were you in,
theater.
were you on the stage quite a bit?
Diary of Anne Frank, South Pacific. I was in the state speech and one-act play.
So were you Anne Frank then?
I was not. I was the couple that lived in the Frank's house. We lived up.
You
in
were
the
a couple.
attic. Well,
That
they
must
had
have been
they
hard.
housed. Oh no, because the girl that was with me was a senior. I was a junior. I was obsessed. We had a bed scene. It was awesome. Now we were both clothed. And at the time I might have been a virgin, but and I was like, I had to go to the playbook to understand what to do. But yeah.
It reminds me of a Denver mattress commercial I once saw.
Yeah, Doleman got to lay down with a bunch of blondes in front of people.
I saw it on his reel. That's how he got to do the Olympics.
My goodness.
I was waiting for an onslaught of former Bill Doleman commercials on President's Day Monday, where every other commercial Sharpie's a mattress commercial, and there's Bill again. I mean,
I was always expecting Bill to show up in a Weird Wally's commercial.
Yeah.
Greatest commercial production in the history of commercials, because those things 50 years later are still running and they cost $1.49 to make.
And they're so bad, but that Weird Wally is selling used cars in Lincoln.
Always drive by that thing on 27th. Kraynak, did you ever contemplate Weird Wally as far as using that time you have on a Saturday or Sunday where when I'm driving is no good, I need to go to Wally's?
I don't even know what that is. I don't know about Weird Wally's.
Oh my gosh.
You can get a Griswold family truckster for $200 and it does still run.
Hell yes. It's actually not bad. I'll have to look at so your commercials they're out there, Bill, for people to see you and
mine.
slinging mattresses.
I don't think that they are. The one's a little they're a little dated. It was a wide range of characters I played. One day, one of the most difficult ones I played was Chris the salesman, and I texted Schmidt after they gave me my role and my name tag, and tried to find my motivation. For the character.
Try to get into character, right?
Yeah.
Was it hard, like over the coming weeks, like getting out of character, right? Like you were just sort of,
it was method
yourself.
acting. It was method acting. I studied with Willem Dafoe and taught me how to get into it. So yeah. That was a stretch of the personality, but yeah, I was Kevin, the discount tire sales guy, as well.
Awesome.
Yeah. But most of I'm Troy McClure. You might know me from such Denver mattress commercials as, yeah,
as the redhead,
yeah,
or the blonde.
Well,
hey, by the way, I'm glad that two of the four people on the show could play for the Yankees today.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They got rid of 49 years the facial policy, something that made them unique. Now, Kraynak, I know that you still want to play baseball. I mean, if you can get down to Tampa, this minor league spring training is about to start.
So they did do that finally. The Yankees.
Yeah, they took away one of the unique things about the Yankees. They'll never put the names on the back of the jerseys, but it was something different.
Yeah,
and then they've adapted to times, like we all do. We used to have these great, cool non-conference matchups, and then we adapted to times.
What's your SEC brethren? What's their take? You reached out to anybody?
Nebraska's getting crushed. It's
how it's the reasoning doesn't.
Okay. So there's a couple of different ways to look at this. There is, I think, two things. there is the money and the stadium, and then there is the current state of how you get to the playoff.
Right. Thank you.
Because look at Indiana. Okay. Indiana just racked up wins. Now there were some good wins along the way, but they were wins. And they benefited from a non-conference schedule that did not have a demon in it. And they just kept winning and they kept hanging around. I think also I want to rewind it here in the reaction yesterday. I'm a season ticket holder. Mark's a season ticket holder as well. College football is better when we have these kind of matchups. They just always are. And we all have to adapt and say, well, I guess we're getting fewer and fewer of these. But as a season ticket holder, I don't want to pay for Houston Christian. I don't want to pay for Miami of Ohio. I don't want to pay for Bowling Green. This crazy series, which this is the last thing. Steve Peterson's now done at Nebraska. This was the last thing that we still had of Steve Peterson because he signed the deal in 2006.
Can we have him on the show?
No, we can never have him on the show. He's the worst thing that ever happened to Nebraska athletics.
I know, but we should talk to him about that.
No, we shouldn't. No, we shouldn't. I don't think he's talked to anybody since he left. I don't think
Who's
since
asked?
Well, I think people went to Pittsburgh and asked.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's completely disappeared. I would never want to talk to him, and that's okay.
I do.
But he signed it in 2006, and then it's got bounced around. So Troy Dan and I did an event together in the fall, and I asked him specifically about the Tennessee game. Now this was the fall, and he said we want to keep it on the slate because we want to at least in 26 have a full stadium, and then 27 of course the game in Knoxville. Yeah. I love experiences. Think about all the orange that would have come north. Think about all the red that would have gone south. The optics, though, were bad because you know what? We did this, 5-6 years ago with Bill Moose and Scott Frost in Oklahoma and the head football coach trying to get out of a game against Oklahoma where the athletic director had no idea it was happening. And all of a sudden he was alerted to it. And so he had to jump on the sword. And you remember how bad Nebraska got raked across the coals? It's going to be the same thing. It's going to happen for another 24 hours. And then we'll step back. And even though it sucks, you're going to go, man, Nebraska was right about the spring game. And they're right about scheduling because you're scheduling to get to the playoff. And you know who the loser is? Us, the fans.
Yeah. Unless Bowling Green comes correct with their NIL game and they land Corey and Moore.
Get out of here.
And I know. It's like, it's pretty crazy. I just don't buy the stadium thing.
Well, okay, so let me tell you a little bit of insight in the stadium. I think there are going to be more seats that are going to be gone in 27 than we think.
Okay. Go on.
Well, because you remember, they're not only doing the South Stadium, but they're also going to – I think they're going to lower –
South Stadium was out, though, for this
No. It's back. It's back, baby. I think they're going to lower the
head
field.
On a swivel.
I think they're going to lower the field when they go to grass. So they're going to have to adjust the sideline seating.
Bring it closer, I wonder.
Well, I think I'm wondering if, the old track will be condensed. Where you have the walkways, the large walkways behind the benches.
Yeah,
if that'll be reduced.
Okay.
Huh.
So you're going to bring it forward?
Yeah, because, you can't, if you're in the first couple of rows, you can't, you're watching the game on Husker Vision.
Yeah, you can't see anything.
Yeah, and and they're also gonna turn more of the sidelines into premium seating.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering if their plan that they won't present until the middle of the summer has more capacity taken out than they originally planned for. But also think, guys, this
temporarily or fully.
Well, I think both and both.
Okay.
The capacity of the stadium is going down.
Yeah, totally. Down to, but I was assuming it was going to be around 75.
Yeah, but 78? Still, that's a good 14,000 seats that are going to disappear.
I love how this is coming full circle. One of the reasons why you have to do that is because Americans have gotten fat, and kind of like Chris was talking about. Honestly, Chris was talking about Josh Heupel. That's how we started the whole thing.
I just wrongfully wondered out loud, as we're all at Big 12 Media Days 25 years ago, where you got this skinny little lefty quarterback from Snow Junior College, playing quarterback now, going into his second year. That Oklahoma team that won the national title came out of nowhere, right? That was Stoops' year 2. Schedule that OU had that year.
Hey, now they played Nebraska when game day was there. Nebraska was up 14-0.
No, I know. I was at that game, and old Joe and Timo let me stow away on the old bus as a radio intern. Went down there for it, but no, that was a hell of an impressive Oklahoma team. But no, Heupel just father time, I guess is what I'm saying. Always wins.
Well, I mean, it just, you know what, it's Big Ten, SEC, and maybe eventually we're going to get to the scheduling alliance where the Big Ten will have, a game against the SEC and it'll be a home and home, and we'll forget about this. It's just, Nebraska can't win this nationally, even though they have valid reasons. They're just not going to win the national optics of this, because we went through this with Oklahoma, and we're turning around with a new athletic director that, he's looking at the bottom line, and he does this. Now, it also stings a little bit because Rule, in a recent interview, said he'd like to play SEC teams, but Indiana screwed us. Indiana showed the path to the playoff, and the playoff is mammoth.
It is. Here's my thing, though.
You get a schedule that's very, very manageable, and you win with that schedule. I mean, we're thinking this. So, what do you think? You win 9 games in the Big Ten, and let's say 6 of them are in the conference. Let's say 7 of them are in the conference. You're feeling pretty good that you're going to be mentioned a lot in late November and early December, right?
Yeah. You're feeling great because presumably you're going to have one of these 4 on your schedule every year. You're going to have an opportunity against a Penn State, a Michigan, an Ohio State, and an Oregon every year. There's no way you go unscathed, and you don't want to if you're a team trying to climb up and get into the playoff. You're going to get one of those 4 every year on your schedule. Either you go there, or they come to your joint, and away you go. Do your job,
at least
win the
one
ball game.
I mean, think about this year, and until I see some guys moving around, Nebraska's not going to be mentioned as a playoff team. But if you step back and look at like Nebraska's type of schedule they have this year, it's very much set up for like a playoff run.
Yes.
It's not overwhelming, but yet you get Michigan early, and then you get a chance to make a little noise in November with USC and Penn State. So it's and it's not like the non-con. Cincinnati is a name, but Cincinnati's not a team that's going to blow you away. But people will look at it and go, "Oh, they played Cincinnati," and then you sneak in Akron and Houston Christian. So it's actually like this year is kind of a schedule where you go, "Oh, okay." If you get hot and you rack up wins, people are going to look at it at the end of the day and go, "Oh man, you played Michigan, USC, Penn State. You played a neutral site game against a Big 12 team. Okay." It's just, it's like yesterday was the culmination of where we are going with college football. Finances, scheduling, conference games. Would you rather have 10 conference games or, make sure you get Bowling Green on the schedule? Those kind of things that everybody is balancing right now. And I will tell you from Nebraska's standpoint, guys, it's all coming to a head at the same time. You've got this stadium project that has been kicked down the road for a while, and it's becoming more expensive. Remember when Trev presented to the Board of Regents and it was $600+ million, and we went, "Huh?" You hear Penn State announce their project, which they're currently undergoing, and that's $700 million.
It's nuts.
Nebraska's project's going to be $1 billion by the time they put a shovel in the dirt. And you also have that. So they're knocking on Kraynak's door going, "Hey,
give till it hurts, Mark.
I know you like your seats. Would you like more comfortability?" And then they're also, and Nebraska is better off than others in terms of having the pot for revenue sharing, but there's also the NIL. So, and we're in a state of 1.9 million people where a lot of people have already given a lot. And T. Boone Pickens is not, hanging out at the Casey's on Cornhusker Highway waiting to give money to Nebraska. So this is a very interesting time, I think, for Nebraska athletics to manage all of this with this gigantic project that has to happen. I mean, they got to get this going.
I look at this as a spin cycle game, because if you go back just a couple of weeks, and Gary, as you're alluding to conversations with Troy Dannon, a couple of weeks ago, it was said no, those games are going to be played, and we're going to hold off the construction until after those games are played because we have to get those games in. And that's like the first quarter. And now we're into the second quarter of this, and Nebraska just gave up a pick 6 yesterday and has lost a little bit of momentum and is taking some hits right now. And eventually that'll die down, and Nebraska will come back with an announcement, I would assume in the next, well, maybe by summer.
So the middle of June is the middle of June is when they're going to present the whole project, and they're going to have, unlike Trev, who left a lot of questions, Troy is going to present it where, if the Board of Regents, if Kathy from the Board of Regents that hates sports and hated Trev comes up with a question, they're going to have an answer right away. Right.
And once they unveil the plans, then all of a sudden the spin cycle churns. Nebraska gets the lead back, and that now becomes the topic of conversation. And for the most part, you can probably put Tennessee to bed until it's time for Miami of Ohio and Bowling Green to come to town. And you go, you know what? You remember 5 years ago or whatever it was, or 2 years ago, Nebraska said that they were supposed to play Tennessee right now. But and I also wonder this, and I have nothing other than my own opinion here as I look between the lines. It would seem as though whatever Troy Dannon is going to set forth in June must have a little bit of momentum in terms of the backing behind it. When Trev unveiled the $600 million price tag, it was like, well, how are you going to pay for it? And that 8-member Board of Regents said, it's like, we don't have any answers here. So even if it is a 4-4 tie, which still mystifies me, they really cannot move forward with it. It would seem to me, from my perspective, there must be some momentum, that there is money coming in for this project. And now we can make this announcement that we're canceling this game. We're going to break ground and blow up and do all those kinds of things sooner rather than later. And now we have to make this move. We'll take a PR hit for a little while. We'll get into the second half of this PR game. And when people have all the amenities in the new stadium to sit in, Nebraska will say, did we schedule Tennessee once? I think it was 2006.
Yeah, just don't lose to Miami of Ohio or Bowling Green. There's another part, and I'm absolutely with you, Bill, that it all, everything comes back to what they do between the lines. And I look at, the yearly World Herald article that Sam writes up about the information he gets about the scanned tickets. I don't know if you guys saw this or not.
Yeah, that was huge with Colorado.
So the Colorado game, as not a surprise, 79,000 tickets were scanned. It still blows me away that at Nebraska, us in the media are counted into the attendance. The players are counted into the attendance. The guy taking your tickets is counted in the attendance. The guy selling your Runzas and Valentinos is counted in your tickets.
For now.
But that was one of the top 5 scanned games. And as I looked at it, a couple of takeaways was, and the Friday night game, by the way, was really good. There were 76,000 scanned tickets for that game. If you go to the Wisconsin game at the end of the year, when Nebraska was playing to become bowl eligible against a rival, there were 7,000 less scanned tickets. So we like night games, and we also like a winner, because the weather wasn't bad for UCLA and Wisconsin, but those were among the lowest scanned ticket games in Lincoln. And when did they fall on the schedule? Nebraska was in a losing streak when they played UCLA. They were still in a losing streak when they played Wisconsin, regardless of, hey, today they win, they're bowl eligible. So everything comes back to, there is so much in this year and moving forward that Nebraska football needs to win. They need to win because it affects so many different things right now, not just the resume of the football coach or the team and recruiting and building and all that. It affects the whole athletic department. Because if you win, we know this, if you win, people will come back, or they will dip deeper into their pocket because they can see it and they've gotten a taste of it.
And by the way, you're going to need as much momentum as you can as you can get on the field, because it is going to be super disruptive, whatever happens to which seats they take down and are going to be out of commission for a given year, what that means for people that have to move locations, what that means for people that have had seats for decades but haven't been contributing and now they're asking them to contribute. That is going to be a ton to navigate. And you can only imagine all the news reports that are going to come out of that about featuring, 40-year season ticket holder from Cozad that's now getting iced out and can't afford it. And so there's going to be a lot happening with that, because you guys are a season ticket holder too, Gary. Same with me.
I'm in the South Stadium.
Yeah, and I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
with
we haven't been told.
Yeah, I'm up in East Stadium expansion. Am I getting iced out because I haven't contributed enough? I don't know.
Well, and there's
have to move. I don't know.
That's a good point, because like those people in the South Stadium, and like, I don't know. There's probably a lot of people in the South Stadium that's had tickets for a long, long time. And the whole grandfathered thing is another discussion. But what if they're kicked out of the stadium for a year, 2 years, and Nebraska football is not winning? And, they're not going to raise ticket prices over the course of the next couple of years. But when the stadium is done and it's easier to get in and out of, they're going to ding you. But if Nebraska's not winning, how many of those fans that lost their seats in South Stadium, that their seats look different and feel different, are going to be like, oh, yeah, GBR, I'm right back with you? Because, the older fan is loyal almost to a fault. That's what we do in Nebraska. Every Saturday we go to Lincoln. And even though it's difficult to get in and out, that's what we do because we love the program and we are GBR for life. But now you're getting younger fans who look at it more from, what is my return on investment? Because it's not cheap to go to a Nebraska football game. But what is my return on investment? And if I'm a business guy, I would never continue to keep throwing money at something that I'm not getting a ROI, right? In your business life. Do you do that then in your personal life? That's also a scary thing if you don't keep momentum going and win on the field.
So that's the age-old question. Where are you at with your devotion to this football program? What's your patience level like? What's your commitment level like if it's taken away through no fault of your own for a couple of years and they finally don't start winning? That's the hard question that several thousand from South Stadium will ask themselves if you're all in or not on Saturdays anymore. And
or if it's easier just to stay home, guys.
Yeah.
Well, people, and to your point, probably, we don't know this, but probably people are going to get kicked out, right? If you look at like total number of season ticket holders, at least temporarily, like imagine delivering that as the athletic department. Like, thank you for everything you've done for being a season ticket holder, but this next year, you got no seats.
Well, I don't know.
And you have to do something for those people too. Like, what are you going to do for them? Right?
Well, you're going to schedule Bowling Green for 2030.
Well, you're right. You're right, Mark, because there's really not availability to relocate people for a couple of years. That amount of people. I mean, look at the South Stadium. The South Stadium is 20% of the stadium.
And it is packed.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
if you're on the edge, if you're on an aisle seat, you're in the aisle.
Now, right? Captain brings up this is a good point. One of the things of Trev's design was he was going to take care of the students in the new South Stadium. I haven't seen the plans that have been reconfigured a little bit, but a good chunk of that left corner of the South Stadium is students. Yeah. Are you going to go through a cycle of losing students that go to games? Because there's really, then when the carryover of the student section, which is next to the band, and those two sections that are about the 10 and the 5 yard line in the southeast corner, that's packed. You're not, where are you going to put people? So their rollout has to be on point. They have to have, answers to the questions that are going to come. And I think communication is going to be huge I know I'm losing my 4 seats, but I'm going to get these 4 seats back in 28. But in the meantime, they're going to offer me the opportunity to sit here. Those kind of things.
You could put everybody in Old Father Hall too, and just tell them that it's a decent view, a little obstructed, but at least you're on the grounds. I would assume that there's going to be, festival watching from Hawks and Cook and other places all around Champion Center, if that still exists. But if anybody wants to have a game day experience without actually going to the game, I would think that there's going to be some provision for Nebraska fans to still come in to Lincoln, enjoy whatever you can. You just aren't going to be able to go into Memorial Stadium for a couple of years, and that's just the way it's going to be. Or maybe you try to cut a deal and say, here's a deal on basketball tickets, on volleyball tickets when they play at PBA, something that soothes over the hurt feelings of not having a Nebraska football game day experience, which is going to be, it's tough too, because now you're talking about adding another game. So ROI, when you're getting season tickets for 7 home games, and now they're telling you there's going to be 8, and that's another one I'm going to miss.
Yeah. I mean, B-Jax is absolutely right here. And no athletic director has the plan or the cojones to ever say this. But to be real, Nebraska,
and for folks that are just listening, what he's saying, ROI is everything. Yeah. Building a totally new stadium in a different location should have been on the table,
which is absolutely true. Tear down Memorial Stadium, sell it to the university, and then there is the plot of land where it's parking now across from Haymarket Park, and then you could build a state-of-the-art 75,000-seat stadium. The problem with that is, could you play in Memorial Stadium and then move there? It's too expensive. This is just a dream. This isn't going to happen. But, if you think about it, the Memorial Stadium is over 100 years old. The old grandma on 10th and Vine kind of in some places looks like it. And they're trying to, make a really nice place look good. But the building a new stadium is like the right play, to do it. But it would not be in the heart of campus. That would be the thing.
Especially if you're talking about $1 billion, even a $600 million price tag, you could put toward a new stadium potentially. I remember, back when I was in school and beyond, there was always talk. Well, why not put one between Lincoln and Omaha so it's accessible to fans from the two major cities in Nebraska? And that was like, well, that can't happen. No. Gary, you've been around the country doing games. I've done every corner, border to border, all of that. And if you do not have a football stadium that is on or adjacent to campus, you kill it. And that I think of all the places I've been where, students, I got to get my car and I got to go find parking, or I got to get a shuttle and go to the game. I mean, they want to roll out. You're talking about the future generations of fans. It has to be on campus. And I agree that there's that plot of land, but to me, that's even almost too far. Across the street is too far. But it should be part of the discussion, and it should have been part of the discussion way back when, remember when that little section in South Stadium crumbled. What was that? That was in the mid 90s or something. And they went through a whole engineering study. And now, I mean, the engineers go through that place every year, probably multiple times a year, just to make sure that it's structurally sound. And they had to have done it when they built the new press box and built the East Stadium expansion and said, yep, this place, still pretty sturdy. But you are one crumbling rock away from some serious discussions about whether or not that facility can withstand much more test of time, but it has to be on campus.
Yeah. And, circling back, these kind of discussions are good off-season discussions. We wouldn't have these discussions if Nebraska football was winning.
Nope.
You would say, oh, it sucks. I got the season ticket that's right behind the pillar in section 11. But man, I love watching Emmett Johnson run down the sidelines and Raiola hit him with a wheel route. It's one of those things of the new day of college athletics with a stadium that's over 100 years old, that a fan base that, is kind of, you're moving some older fans out. You're trying to find those new fans that have money that can afford to go, and you're going to take care of them because those new fans, they want the club level, and we've all sat in the club level. The club level is really nice at Nebraska. I mean, that's a good seat. It's a good seat to watch the game. The accommodations are really good. It's a lot easier to get in and out of. So I don't envy Troy Dannon in trying to navigate in a state of 1.9 million. What's next for Nebraska football? He's got somebody that takes care of the on the field, but people don't want to sit in a crappy stadium, even if the product is good. And he's also thinking about the next 10 years, 15 years down the road, those new fans that are going to come, because Nebraska, I would love to see, and I don't know if they would ever do this, I would love to see what the average age of the season ticket holder is at Nebraska.
I think you got to go.
Are we?
We're probably
mid-50s? Mid-50s?
I think you're probably low 60s, aren't you?
I'd probably go upper 40s. I bet you when you average it out. But it's an interesting question. There are a lot of institutional fans that have been around for a while, but there's quite a few younger ones too. There are a lot of corporations, obviously, that have some of the season tickets. And we say all this, and obviously that's going to be a whole thing to navigate with fans, and then the actual stadium itself, and how long you're going to be out it's going to be a mess. But if you step back from it, Nebraska's positioning themselves from a facility standpoint as good, if not better, than I'd say almost every school in the country right now, right? Like you just got the new North Stadium building in the Palace that everybody that's been through it, says there's really nothing like it, right? That it's clearly ahead of the pack as schools are trying to come up with revenue for paying players and NIL and all of that stuff. So you're good there for a long time. And then now you're going to get the stadium right. Like that is a solid foundation, right? That should last you a good while. So you can just devote money to paying players and paying coaches and all of that stuff. There's a lot of schools that are not going to be able to compete with that. There's a lot of schools that were probably thinking of stadium expansion or thinking of stadium renovations or new facilities that are just like, hell no. We can't do that now because we got to pay Johnny wide receiver $1 million this year.
You got a lot of mouths.
Revenue.
You got a lot of mouths to feed right now in the world of college sports.
So Bill, so Bill Moose, Moose, he started down the path of what do we need to do with the stadium, and then him and Scott had a pretty in-depth conversation about what do we want to do with football? And it was a whole encompassing facilities, scheduling, la da da da. It's probably then he got his 2-year extension. But the one thing they came to an agreement on is as Frost and his staff were getting to see the rest of the Big Ten, they said, we need something for the players. And so Frost pushed along with others, but Moose was balancing, okay, we got to do something with the stadium. But then there was, man, we got to do something for the football program because our facilities are falling so far behind. So they went ahead with the football facility project ahead of the stadium project, which if you think about it, makes sense. But it's going to cost more now to redo the stadium or do what they want to do to the stadium. And that football facility is, Nebraska went from, being in high A minor league baseball to they're firmly in the MLB.
Yeah.
When they open the doors to that place.
Right. Super comfortable place. It prioritizes recovery. It's for the entire athletic program. It's incredible technology. It's I think great. Nebraska's set for a long time with that thing.
I think they sent a message too because the players don't care if me in row 64, my half butt cheek is off a plank. Okay. They care if they can get the rehab and they can be, where they can get taken care of as a student athlete. And I think they understand that. So if you see a school that makes a commitment to the athlete, I think that goes a long way with the current athletes that are using it and then future athletes as well. It's the balance of, hey, this is for you guys. Now this is for the people that support you and essentially pay your salary.
It's pecking order for sure. Absolutely. That's Gary Sharp, Bill Doleman, Mark Kraynak, Chris Schmidt, the weekend edition of the Average Joe Sports Show. Like and subscribe, Spotify, and on iTunes. YouTube channel, like and subscribe. The Average Joe Sports Show, the 7-day-a-week extravaganza for you, 4 to 6, Monday through Friday. And weekend, 7:45-ish. We were heavy on the ish this morning. And tomorrow morning, Sunday live at 10:30. Elijah's in the ish. Elijah's in the desert right now on a bachelor party. So we wish him safety is what we're hoping for. Last thought here. One more thing, Kraynak. How about Vegas? The first time I'm ever going to get to go to Vegas in my life will be for Big Ten Media Days.
Hold on. Is that true?
That's one of the most stunning things I have ever heard in my life. And ever since I heard it like a year or so ago, Schmidt has never been to Vegas.
Wow.
I've only been once. I hear you.
Once?
And I don't care if I ever go back. Yeah. Not my bag.
Okay.
It's okay. Great resorts, great hotels. Like, you're going to love that. Like, it's lavish.
There's also entertainment out there.
There's a little bit of entertainment out there. But man, 2 or 3 days there and I'm good. And then I'm like, okay, I'm ready to leave.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't wait to get out there and do shows, man, for Media Day. And then of course, Average Joe shows.
Why?
Yeah.
Why do we got to hate Indy like this?
What's your take though, Sharpie? I mean, and Bill, I mean, I loved going to Indy. I stayed across the street from Lucas Oil in that little Holiday Inn. Sorry about the free shout out Saturday. And then I would go to St. Elmo's and then watch people freak out with the shrimp cocktail sauce. Their reactions were priceless. I had a good time. I really did not care for Nebraska's been incredible with access. Nobody else gives a damn about Radio Row. So, so there's that, but I liked Indy. I thought it was good on the stadium, on the 50-yard line. We're set.
Well, it's best to have an event like that where it's centrally located for the Big Ten Conference footprint. So you want to go to Las Vegas. So you're kind of right in the heart. Like
you'll get a title game there shortly. Don't you think?
I wouldn't doubt. I wouldn't doubt it. Sure, why not? But they probably listen to Mick Cronin, and and the football people said, you know what, Mick Cronin is right. We can't have teams from the West Coast seeing the Statue of Liberty twice, the actual Statue of Liberty twice in 1 year. So we'll have the West Coast teams, Washington, Oregon, UCLA, and USC. They can go see the Statue of Liberty in their own backyard at New York, and it won't seem and they won't have to travel as far. So I think Mick Cronin put the pressure on the Big Ten to be a little more centrally located for the entire Big Ten footprint. So that's why Las Vegas is now on the map.
He's an angry elf.
I love that. Wait a minute, Bill. He's going to blame you for his downfall. I love Indy. I think Indy is a larger version than Omaha. Great event town. That's where the Final Four always comes back to. I like the flex of this by the Big Ten because the Big Ten, by the way, has spread out their product. Look at their TV networks for football.
Yeah.
And then they're like, you know what? We're a national brand. Let's go to the entertainment capital of the world. Let's go to Las Vegas because you know what? People will come to Las Vegas. Now, for media, I mean, there are a lot of us in the media that drove to Indianapolis. I can tell you, we're not driving to Las Vegas.
That's a tough drive. Too.
That's a little bit of a tough drive.
It's like 11 hours, 12.
But you have to. The league is changing. The league isn't 3 yards in a cloud of dust. It's a league that has a personality. That they have a huge brand, and I think this is kind of a little bit of a flex to go to Vegas because they got attention yesterday. People are like, wow, look at this. Look what the Big Ten is doing. We're talking about a media day that didn't even happen until July.
Yeah. Well, it's easy to underestimate the media markets that Nebraska added by getting USC and UCLA. I was in the Bay Area last weekend. That's Big Ten Network is a part of the normal sort of cable package, right? In the Bay Area. And that's not even where USC and UCLA are. Oregon's probably closer to them.
Mhm.
So you add, and that's probably what, the number 4, number 5 media market, then LA's number 2 or 3, I guess, right? With Chicago. Yeah. And then you got the entire, so you just got the entire Western Seaboard. And now you're talking Vegas. It's hard to, the SEC's got nothing on that. They've got a couple, I guess, more prominent blue blood brands with Texas and Oklahoma. But I'm not sure they expanded their media market footprint quite like the Big Ten has. I mean, the Big Ten has all of it, all of it except for the South, basically.
It's not an unusual flex for the Big Ten. Didn't they play the Big Ten basketball tournament in Washington a few years ago?
They played
Well,
at the
Delaney
MCI Center.
Jim Delaney made a mistake. Jim Delaney's ego got in the way, and they tried to play at MSG and DC. And remember at MSG, which Madison Square Garden in March is the Big East. And the Big Ten tried to go in there, and they were forced to play a week earlier, and it was a mistake. So I think that was a Jim Delaney ego thing. This is kind of a Tony Petitti of like, man, I got a good gig here. And what will be the counter move by, the SEC? The SEC is either in Birmingham, Nashville, or Atlanta, and they always draw all the attention. So now you're in Vegas. You don't think reporters want to go to Vegas?
I'm excited.
Here's the thing the SEC I don't think can do, and maybe it's on the deal. Let's go to Dallas. Remember how that all worked?
Yeah.
That all worked out in the Big 12 when, hey, let's go where Texas. No, I think the SEC is their flags are planted firmly in their territory. I don't see them going to Chicago to try and plant a flag in Big Ten country. Maybe they go to Vegas as well, but if they're thinking anything outside of their current footprint, and hey, what do you say we welcome our brothers from Texas? And oh no, that is not gonna fly at all.
Yeah,
there is no welcome. Sharpie, as we wind it down.
Are we not going to talk about Mason McConaughey last night?
Yeah,
was Mason McConaughey shoved it?
No, we can. That was. Right. We'll get there. I mean, he responded. Really good bounce
6,
back.
No walks.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question here? Can I get some? So, after every loss from here on out for Nebraska basketball, we're on Fire Hoiberg watch.
I'm not, but
no.
But
that's not serious, though, is it? I don't believe.
No, it is not
discussion.
But I wish they would have a serious discussion. When they start dividing up revenue sharing and the NIL, where is Nebraska men's basketball? Their NIL is not very good right now, guys. But if you'd like to join me on Monday night,
allocated to basketball, you mean?
Yes. If you'd like to join me on Monday night, so the weather is warming up. We're going to have snow is going to be melting. It's going to be 60 on Tuesday. I mean, people are going to be wearing shorts Monday night when Nebraska upsets Michigan and we storm the floor, right?
You got to do it. I mean,
stroll the floor.
Stroll, not storm. Okay.
I'm being a little bit sarcastic here because I have no idea what's going to happen on Monday night, especially after Michigan got bopped at home last night.
Yeah.
And then the other one is we caution people early in a college baseball season all the time. You can't look at college baseball like you do a college football schedule. They play 56 games.
Mm-hmm.
Football plays 12. Okay. So overreacting to one game or a weekend, you're going to end your life quickly. Okay. You're just going to be miserable. So would Nebraska have rather been 3-1? Was the Grand Canyon game yes, it was, especially because it was done on the offense. But last night was a really good win. That's a good win. And Nebraska's a really good baseball team, guys. If their Friday night starter is as advertised, and I think he is, and they get something today in the doubleheader out of Horn and Walsh, and you're 2 weeks into your season and you're not even thinking twice about your Saturday and Sunday starter, then they're in a really, really good spot.
So we know we got McConaughey as the Friday guy so far.
I need more than 4 innings out of Horn today in the first game of the doubleheader.
Mm-hmm.
And then Will Walsh has decided to, instead of waiting until he comes to Omaha in May, he's like, you know what? I'll start pitching better at the beginning of the year. And he was really good on Sunday against San Diego State.
So does that kind of sound like the Friday, Saturday, Sunday right now?
Yes, and I would
change,
keep,
obviously.
and I would keep, because he would be a really good Tuesday starter. I would keep Brockett as my early midweek guy.
Well, and they decided on Walsh to be that Sunday guy versus Brockett, where, weekend wise, Brockett Sharpie will get some bullpen work, but he'll be your midweek dude. And he's quite capable of being a weekend guy. So Nebraska's finally set up with a really good rotation. I mean, the rotation and the days that are spread out. I mean, I think I'm going to jinx everything and put midweek games, that worry factor that has dropped decisively for me, just because of the arms that Nebraska can go with midweek.
Yeah, where's Christo figure in? He had a tough start, obviously.
I don't know. Drew's had such an odd career at Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
But he was one of the more reliable guys at the end of last year in their run, into the Big Ten tournament, and then during the stay in Omaha. I don't know. I think he's a swing guy, but man, if you can go through a Big Ten slate where you don't have upheaval on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, well, you'd take that every day, and then you figure out what to do with Christo. Kobe asked Luke Broderick. They're going to keep Broderick in the back of the bullpen. Mm-hmm. He's from Elkhorn Mount Michael, went to Iowa Western. I think they love his stuff coming out of the bullpen. They're a good team. They're a really, really good team that you're not going to have opportunities to help the resume because you're not playing Oregon or Indiana in the Big Ten. So they built this tough non-conference schedule for a reason. So you got to grab as many wins as you can.
Yeah, I think this Nebraska baseball team, when we look back, the moment of the year will be the Vanderbilt win. And it's tough in a season of 6 regular season games. And I've said all along, too, they got to take care of Tuesday and Wednesday, right? Yeah. Those can't be treated like inter-squad scrimmages. You got to have a winning record on Tuesdays and Wednesdays against teams that are gunning for you, and especially beat Creighton. But I think the Vanderbilt game, despite the fact that it will in May, you'll say, well, that was way back in game 2. But you think of the emotion of the night with the news about Greg Sharp's passing, and Timmerman taking one off the bean is,
oh my goodness,
is a moment that I think those players, I don't say galvanized. That sounds like they were maybe fraction, in different factions or something. But I think that was, he gets up and he smiles for the team photo after the game, and he's having, I don't know if he has had surgery. He's going to have surgery. He intends to pitch again this year, which to me is amazing. But I think that's a moment that brought this team together that cannot be understated. Once we get toward the postseason, they're going to look back at that night as the one that set the tone for Nebraska baseball. It won't get lost in 56 games.
If anybody hasn't seen the image of Tucker Timmerman by now, the shot from the dugout with how much he swelled at that kid, wow. There's obviously a little bit of concern because it's around the eye, and you need some vision, obviously, to pitch well in general. So you hope he can get back. It did bring up a discussion I was having, though, and I've started to see it a little bit on the youth baseball level more than because before that I'd never seen it. Face masks for pitchers. So last year, again, it was youth baseball. It was 11U. But I had never seen face masks. Last year, we saw it twice. Two different teams where the pitchers wore a face mask. And they do that in softball, obviously. It's a lot closer. The mound is a lot closer to home plate. But I wonder if that's one of those things that if you fast forward a couple of years, where we'll look back and kind of wonder, like, how did they never like is that a thing that we could see happening? And I don't know if there's actual rules against it right now. There could be. There's very specific equipment rules and field rules and everything, because you never see it. You never see face masks for pitchers, but they're light enough now. And I mean, dude, 106 miles an hour from 60 feet away.
That's
like that is a
deadly. That's dangerous. But as a, not that I was anything to write home about, but as a pitcher, I could not imagine wearing that. Now, I couldn't imagine taking one off the face either. That would suck. But
well, so, so softball wears, the pitchers in softball wear essentially an old school catcher's mask.
Yes.
You remember in Major League Baseball a couple years ago, they had the kind of like the Guardian caps.
Yeah.
But I don't recall any pitcher ever wearing a face mask. And I think pitchers would think that would be cumbersome.
Of course.
And, I think it's just one of the things of baseball.
No, 2 days.
There's nothing like sorry, go ahead, Bill.
I was going to say 2 days after Timmerman got hit, the Dodgers had a pitcher take one.
Yeah.
And
Shelby Miller.
Yeah. And Timmerman, got up and, like I said, smiled for the victory photo after the game. It was a scary moment. We've all seen scary moments, right? In baseball, where somebody gets hit and it can be career ending. It can also be career ending if they take one off the dome in the batter's box. That's part of the perils of the game. But I think, with where safety and all of those equipment concerns have been made about, in other sports, specifically in football, you saw more Guardian caps actually being used in NFL games, and it's just an acceptable thing. The face mask now in softball, you don't have the arms going under, so you don't have the potential for going over and maybe knocking it off with an overhand pitch or something. But I think at some point, maybe you start instituting it at the lower levels of the game, Little League, Midget Legion ball, and just saying, this is what you're going to grow up with. It took them a long time. Gary, you're a baseball historian. How many players never used a batting helmet? Back in the even as late as the 1970s, or hockey goalies didn't have a helmet. And then they institute the ear flap on one side, then it's on both sides, and now it's the flap goes around and extended to the jaw. And it's just sometimes the evolution and the understanding. You know what? This is just the way it's going to have to be, and we're going to have to grow up a generation of pitchers who are willing and understand that you have to do this now for the safety of the players. And I can remember the night this wasn't a pitching incident, because it was a coach standing in the first base coach's box, Mike Coolbaugh, in a minor league game in Oklahoma. Was hit in the head by a foul ball. It dropped him and he died on the field that night. I think baseball has got to, look at itself and say, we need to make the game safer for these guys, because the bat speed, it's a big deal, right? That we no longer talk about home runs and how and what the score is afterwards. It's what was the launch angle and what's the exit velocity. And it's like the XVO is this sexy stat, like, wow, that was 140 miles launched out of the yard. Well, 106 miles an hour back at the pitcher's mound has to be cause for concern. Much like you don't talk about a football player. Well, he got his bell rung, he'll be back in there. I think that the discussion has to be toward player safety or pitcher safety in that regard.
Yeah, when you brought up Mike Coolbaugh, who I had a little bit of brief interaction with, the result was first and third base coaches now have to wear a batting shell. Yeah, that used to not happen. I mean, it is crazy in the sports that, we see the old black and white of the NFL, and they used to wear leather helmets, and guys in the black and white era of television, they were wearing just their regular ball cap at the plate. I mean, hockey until 1979 in the NHL, you didn't even have to wear a helmet.
Yeah.
It is kind of wild. But I agree with you, Bill. I think this is an ongoing discussion that, you just keep your fingers crossed that, and they've gone, I think it was in the 1920s, the last time a pitcher was hit and died on the mound, that, they don't have anything serious. But Timmerman and then Miller of the Dodgers in the spring training game against the Cubs the other day. I mean, it is scary. It's even scarier, guys, because I've been in a ballpark where I've heard a pitcher get hit when you hear it.
Oh, dude.
Yeah. And I can't imagine the sound in Arizona on Saturday night when Timmerman got hit.
You could pick it up on TV. Yeah, you could hear it. Yeah. It's brutal. And you think about hockey and baseball those are the only two sports where there's like a very hard projectile screaming right at human beings, right? Yep. Like there's nothing like that. You don't have that in basketball, football, or anything else. And hockey, they're all padded up because of it, right? They're completely armored now and they're protecting themselves, but baseball does not do that. The catchers like that, right? The catchers all geared up. I just wonder if it's a thing that you'll see more of, because all it's going to take, though, I think, is for Garrett Cole or someone like that to get, just crushed, hit in the face, something crazy to kind of affect that sort of change. And then just mentally, imagine, like, is Timmerman going to be all right? Like, coming back to the mound, is he going to be?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right? Like, mentally,
PTSD.
I mean, guys from Beatrice are tough.
Yeah, they are. Sharpie, Bill Kraynak, Chris Schmidt. It is the Average Joe Sports Show weekend edition, Saturday morning.
Schmidt's trying to get out of here.
No, I have 5 minutes.
Another cup of decaf.
I have 5 minutes. You guys can keep rocking as long as you want. What did you? I want to get a quick take because this was kind of all on our docket. I think we all paid attention to or watched a little bit of the Four Nation final, U.S. Canada. I mean, that was awesome. That was really a lot of fun to watch. The result, not what America wanted or needed, but it was so well done. So well done, and lots of drama, lots of juice, and what a finish for O Canada. Dump out all of your Crown Royal.
Hey, screw you, Canada. You know what? We're not the 11th province. You can keep your Tim Hortons. We'll keep our Duncans. From the hockey perspective, I thought it was great for hockey because it was high-level hockey. You can see when players on a competition field care, it resonates with the fans. And the Saturday way it happened in Montreal with the U.S. winning and the fights and everything, I think just led to the buildup of Thursday night. Now, in this country, yesterday morning, we weren't talking hockey. We were like, you know what? You can have it. Just send us Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and we'll see you in the Olympics in Italy next year. In Canada, it was a whole different story. It's their sport. They're very envious of us because we're starting to be better at hockey. Like, look at World Juniors. We've done really, really well. Canada still hasn't won a Stanley Cup since 1993. Take that. You know what? That sucks. That sucks in your sport. But it was great for the sport, and I think it will build up. I think NBC got a gift for the Olympics next year because when this rolls around, people will be talking about can the U.S. and Canada play again, and then we'll have some other countries that are in there. So it was great for the sport. I also saw, TV ratings. There were more casuals that don't watch hockey that tuned in because it was red, white, and blue, and it was on our soil. I know plenty of golf people that watch the non-golf people, I should say, that watch the Ryder Cup because it's on our soil and it's red, white, and blue. And we're beating another country. So all of that together and the pride and, the political tenure at the time, it led to what we got on Thursday, monster ratings and monster betting.
Yeah.
There was the betting haul for the Four Nations was gigantic.
There will probably come a day when the politics of the world are maybe a little less intense, and it will be a Five Nations, and perhaps the Russians will be allowed to play in the tournament, which will make it even more fascinating, more intense. But I that's some of the best hockey played, as we all know, from what is it now, 40, 50.
45 years.
The Miracle on Ice is
45 years. Yeah. No, it's today, isn't it?
45 years ago today. So, I kind of thought, well, yeah, it's nice. Finland. Okay. And Sweden and Canada, the United States. There's still the black hat that isn't in this. And that will be fun at some point, where it'll become, the Russians will be involved, and maybe we'll allow, Fiji's team to even it out and make it 6, something like that. American Samoa. So I look.
Give
I
me
look forward to those
Jamaica,
days.
the Jamaican hockey team.
Or whoever shows up in the 28 Olympics for flag football against the U.S.
Look, there's going to be a group of 5 hockey representative in the Six Nations Cup. Okay, so that they get to play too. They get part of the TV revenue. So I miss the black hat of the Russians on the 45th anniversary. It was a great exhibition for hockey. It was great TV. If they had not dropped gloves in the first 9 seconds on Saturday, ESPN probably treats it like, well, we got Monday Night Hockey before the regular season begins, and they start promoting the playoffs. But because of what happened, the Kachuk brothers going Hanson triplets on Canada, that changed the whole tone of the Four Nations tournament. That was incredible, spontaneous moment for that sport. And if I'm Adam Silver, I am trying to figure out what I can do to replicate that in the NBA so that I'm not losing nearly 60% of my audience. And now you've just lost one of your most promising stars in Wembanyama, who's being shut down for the season. But the NBA needs to take a long, hard look at hockey to figure out the way they can make their All-Star weekend palatable, because ain't nobody watching that no more. And that sets the tone for the rest of the regular season.
Well, pretty funny that Captain's right here. We need another Rocky. This time Rocky storms Canada.
Speaking of hockey, on the local level, Gary, the Omaha Mavericks have kind of come off the mat. They couldn't score early in the year, and now all of a sudden they've vaulted up to 3rd in the NCHC. What was up with that tournament? Because they looked like an entirely different.
Yeah, they couldn't score on the power play. They've gotten better on the power play. They suffered a key injury at Western Saturday night. They're off this weekend. They have a monster series with Arizona State, which, by the way, Arizona State is turned into a pretty good hockey program. They're 2nd in the NCHC.
Things I never thought I'd hear in my life.
Well, they invested.
Omaha's in the same conference.
So Arizona State is 2nd in the NCHC, which is the SEC Big Ten of college hockey. They play in Omaha next weekend, and then they finish at North Dakota. It's going to be tight to get home ice advantage, but they've turned their season around. They got dinged because of some early losses, so they have to basically win they have to win their conference tournament to get into the NCAA tournament. But they did turn around their season in terms of putting the puck in the net. Midway through the year, power play got better.
Who got hurt?
Harrison Israel's nasty. It was on a face-off Saturday night. Puck got dropped. Western Michigan player leaned in, and he rolled into Israel's, and his knee did not look good.
Too bad. And then tonight, Maverick basketball.
Maverick basketball. Omaha basketball, baby.
And they're atop the Summit League right now, and they got South Dakota tonight.
We got a blackout. They got pro wrestlers that are here to take part if Omaha wins in the post-game kicking of the can.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, they've gone all in. But it'd be a tough game tonight against South Dakota. They lost to them earlier this year by 4 in Vermilion.
How about Omaha, Creighton, Nebraska all making it to the dance this year? It is certainly possible. Certainly possible.
Okay, so no, that's a good question to get out on. 3 weeks from tomorrow is Selection Sunday. Now, keep in mind, the Summit League is an auto bid, and they only get one, and you have to go to Sioux Falls and win 3 games. But Omaha will more than likely be the 1 or the 2 seed. St. Thomas can't go to the NCAA tournament because they're still in their transition from Division III to Division I. So if Omaha and St. Thomas tie for the regular season and St. Thomas wins the conference tournament, Omaha goes to the NCAA tournament. So 3 weeks from tomorrow, Selection Sunday. Creighton is probably going to be a 7 or an 8. They're in. What will Nebraska be? They've got Michigan at home.
They might be an 11 seed in Dayton.
Okay, so they've got Michigan at home, which is a monster game Monday night.
Yeah.
They got a home game against Minnesota, which kudos to Ben Johnson. In season, Minnesota has turned their year around. Now they're not going to the tournament without winning it in Indianapolis, but They just went out. By the way, Minnesota
UCLA.
football swept La La Land, and Minnesota basketball swept La La Land. And then you got a trip to Ohio State, which, for some reason in some of these brackets, Ohio State is still in after they got punked by Northwestern. And then you finish with Iowa. So you got 4 games left. Nebraska's metrics are still pretty good, even though they've trailed by 20 in back-to-back games against 2 teams that are not in the NCAA tournament. 3 weeks from tomorrow, what seed is Nebraska?
They're an 11 in Dayton.
But how about Burke being just way more of a factor in their winning than I think we all gave it credit for? They're different without him. They're very different without
Well,
him.
he's changed on how he's played. I mean, he's when he was playing here, he got his role. He rebounded. He'd hit a shot or two, but he'd do some
Changed his
assists.
body. Changed his body during the year.
The Turkish destroyer.
I thought it was nightmare last week.
Yeah, it depends on what day of the week it is. But if he
Same
comes
thing
back,
with the whole team. The whole thing is what day of the week is it, and what are we going to get?
Absolutely, that is the life of a Nebraska basketball fan, which is the most tortured fan base in all of Nebraska sports. We stick with them, but they are the team that you will quit and then come back to in the course of a possession.
Yes.
In a game. But yeah, you don't know what they're going to be from day to day, because this might be a trick question. Would it surprise you, knowing what Nebraska basketball does, if they win Monday night?
No.
Michigan got beat by 13 last night at home to Michigan State. They're still going to be ranked. Dusty May is, probably going to be the coach of the year in the conference. But would it surprise you, coming on the heels of Penn State, where that was disappointing, god-awful, bad loss, but it didn't knock them out of the tournament because the bubble is not great, that Nebraska finds a way to win Monday night against Michigan? And you guys all said no. That's the life of a Nebraska basketball fan.
And the place will be
at
packed.
home. Yeah, at home, Nebraska's a different beast altogether.
The place will be packed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, I don't think Michigan State did Nebraska any favors, but
I don't think so either.
But I think it's a winnable game. I think it's a losable game. I think we're all going to be exhausted when it's all said and done. And this has been the most exasperating season of the 5 decades of Nebraska basketball I think I've watched.
They're really up and down. It's interesting. Because they look like a bona fide top 20 team when they're on, and they look like they're not going to make the conference tournament team when they're at their worst. Which, by the way,
when they don't give a damn, they are so tough to watch.
I wonder if it's that as much as it is just with a basketball team, especially playing the high level of competition they play, like keeping their legs and their body right during the year is really difficult. And to me, they just look, I don't know if it's that they don't care as much as just, I know coaches have to think about that all the time. Like, how much do you condition them, especially with the traveling? How much do you condition? How much do you back off? It's kind of different for each player too, in some ways. It's just, you go through these periods of kind of lackadaisical hoops. So it seems like every program and team deals with that during the year.
Well, I go back to Fred saying, got to play the right way. And sometimes they choose to not play the right way because it's harder to do so.
Yeah. I think I've said on my show real quick. I don't know.
One last thing.
I don't know if Fred likes this team, but Fred constructed this team with a bunch of reclamation projects. They lack the Sam.
They made him punch a whiteboard.
I got a quick story on that in just a moment. Yeah. They lack the Sam Greasel that runs the point, that gets everybody on the same page. Okay, that says, okay, we just walked on the floor against Penn State, a team that has had no life, that has lost 7 in a row, and we're playing in a cave where I can hear Grandma Jones in the third level munching on the popcorn. We're not letting this happen. They don't have that at that position, which I think you need. We always talk about, hey, Bryce needs to be the alpha, and Bryce and Juwan, can they take over? Well, where's the guy that's going to have the ball in his hands the most that says, not today, fellas. Okay, we're not going to do this. And that's kind of what happened on Wednesday night. So back to Fred on Sunday. So I was talking to one of his assistants the other day. They had never, and this guy has worked with Fred for an extended period of time. they had never, ever seen Fred that upset. In their entire time working with him, Fred snapped like he was heated at halftime in Evanston. Like the whole room was like, what is going on? Because you got to remember, Fred can't get excited
because of his heart.
And then he's also on blood thinners. And Fred is really good at managing the emotions of being the head coach of this particular team. And they told me that it was building and building and building, and the room got quieter, and people were like, oh my God, what's happening? And then snapped and punched the board on the wall. And like guys were like, oh God, they're like,
what do we do to him?
We're effed.
And they came and they played out of their minds.
Yeah.
And then they lost to Penn State.
But see, that's why I think Fred is in a moment, guys, where he knows, as Bill was saying, on some nights they look top 25, on some nights they look bottom 25. Just get them to the tournament. Get this team to the tournament and then roll the dice. But we just need to we got ourselves off the 6-game siesta and into the Big Ten tournament. We got to just get to the NCAA tournament, and then whoever knows, whatever team will show up. I mean, it's the roller coaster, but I followed this program for a long time, and I don't think we'll ever get off that roller coaster. That's just what Nebraska basketball is. It doesn't matter if Tim Miles, who's got a better win percentage than Fred, or Fred Hoiberg coaching, hell, even Danny's teams. That's welcome to Nebraska basketball.
Here's the deal. Of all the teams that we've seen over the years that could have and should have probably been the one to win a game in the NCAA tournament, teams that people have fallen in love with from the beginning of the season to the end, much like I think last year's team or the Sam Griesel team when he came back home and led the team to a spirited season and every night out, people kind of knew that, it may not be the better team that day, but they got a chance to win, and we love the effort. And last year was so exciting with Tominaga. This might be the team that, after all this exasperation, is the one that sneaks into the tournament and gets that first win. And they're gonna take the team photo. They're gonna take the team photo, and the color is going to transition to black and white, and you're gonna hear Gene Hackman in the background close out the movie and say, "I love you guys." And the Hickory Huskers made history at PBA in 2024, 25, and 50 years from now, they're going to go, that's the greatest team in Nebraska basketball history because it's the one that finally got a win in the NCAA tournament.
You may not hear I love you. you might hear something else.
I tolerate you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's been surprising, too, because I thought with Worcester, I thought they had.
He's hit some big shots, though, but my God, he can't make some of his shots. It's so weird.
He's the poster child of this team.
Yes.
Yeah. I thought he would
absolutely
firm. I thought he would take firm command of the offense, though, and he just really hasn't. It's just,
well, you have to, like when you take a step back, the way they put this roster together shouldn't surprise you. If where you're getting a guy from Wisconsin, why did Wisconsin let Essegian go? Why did Utah let Worcester go? What happened to that guy named Gavin Griffiths? He's the only guy that enjoyed the trip to Evanston and State College because he got to play.
Nobody took his goggles.
I mean, their margin of error is so small. Like Andrew Morgan getting 2 fouls early in the game on Wednesday. We probably all looked at each other and said, they're effed. Mm-hmm. And then Bryce gets 3 and you're like, you know what? Hey, all right, let's just not make this, let's just don't take a beating here, But we'll reconvene tomorrow morning at 10:30 with the Average Joe Sports Show live Sunday. Let's get some runs for Jordy Ball. Come on.
Yes, I love it. So appreciate you. Like and subscribe the Average Joe Sports Show YouTube, on Twitter, AJ Sports Radio, and Spotify and iTunes. That is how you do it. 7 days a week for you with the Average Joe Sports Show. That is Gary Sharp, Bill Doleman.
I love you
Mark
guys.
Kraynak. Kraynak, can we hug it out?
Love you too.
Love you all. We'll talk to you tomorrow, 10:30, a John Baylor sighting.
Hey, Schmidt. Schmidt. Look, John could. John Cook.
My job.
Talk
My
to you
job
guys.
is to describe what I saw. Mission
There's-
accomplished.
They're scratching
Good
their
night,
backs
everybody.
on the bricks.
Would he be offended if we all go around? I can't.
No,
do the-
no. Here's the deal. So
One more thing.
JB and I have known each other for 30 years,
Yeah.
and I can't now we don't see each other as much as we do. Him living in Lincoln and me in Omaha.
Right.
I can't spend that much time around him because I start talking like him. But here's the thing.
We all do.
John doesn't catch it. And he
So
thinks
you-
it's like, he's like, there's her. Teaching in Omaha, let's lunch. But you start talking like him.
Nice guy.
That is
Nice.
fantastic.
Yeah.
That is fantastic.
By the way, Nebraska volleyball is going to play a significant match at Devaney Center the day of the spring game.
All right.
That's the spring match. Who they got this year?
Well, they're still going to go to Ord, I believe, but they're building up the 26th of April because of the spring game is going to be wonky. They're going to have they're like soccer is going to play not at Memorial. Volleyball is not playing at Memorial, but they're going to have like all the teams that can play. They're going to try and have them play during that day in a celebration of Nebraska sports. I also got the feeling that student athletes at Nebraska, I hope you don't have arthritis because you're going to be signing a lot of autographs on the day of the 26th.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Doleman. Bill, can you come to my office? Sure, sir. All right, that'll do it.
Hey, when did we start caring in college football about spring games? Because Texas announced they're not doing it. Other schools are falling in line when Nebraska was first. People are losing their mind, but
It feeds the. I mean, look, it's a long off season, right? It's the longest off season in sports.
It's an appetizer for you.
there's still
Yeah.
like teams are still going to have their evaluation period. And even with when you've had a spring game, the major scrimmage that is the week before you play your spring game is like the game that matters the most. It's for fun and for a big crowd. And how do you react, when you play like the spring game? But I do wonder if something, Schmidt, you just said, and we're already going NFL light in college athletic and college football, if they adjust the calendar that it matches the NFL a little bit more in terms of like the OTAs, where you don't really have a spring football is not March and April, but maybe you go to May.
Yep.
When the second that mid semester begins after, the spring semester.
No, you'll see a shifting calendar.
Because wear and tear, like how does Ohio State start spring practice here? I mean, they played
It just got
until the
done.
end of January.
Yeah. It is. It's a lot. Like just the logistics of it and figuring out your roster and all that. It's a lot.
We'll talk to you manana, 10:30 with the Average Joe Sports Show. Appreciate y'all.
Anybody got one more thing?
Did we know that last year's spring game was going to be the last one ever? We didn't.
No, because we were having this discussion
We're about ready to end the
Hey,
stream.
No. Kraynak makes a great point because
Thank you, Gary. I did.
we were also having a discussion on this show about, hey, what if they turn spring football into like a joint game? Like you would play South Dakota State
kind of
or
joint.
Iowa
Yeah.
State. Well, you can turn it into a joint game because they don't have the drug-free pledge anymore.
I know.
When your last head football coach is walking around with a fatty during a game, you can't say no to drugs during a game.
No.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody just do
But-
heroin. Come to the
But
game.
we were talking about like, man, there's coaches that would like to play an actual game, a controlled scrimmage, but play somebody you're not going to play during the regular season. And we were like, oh, this is great. Nebraska and Iowa
Tennessee.
State. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then TV money came in and you're like, you know what? Even if we lose $1 million, because that's what we make on the spring game in Nebraska, that TV money's going to take care of it.
Yeah. I hear you.
Maybe they could do flag football and get themselves ready for the Olympics.
Zero interest.
That's kind of what they've done with the last couple of years, right?
Pretty
Remember
much.
Frost's last spring game?
No,
That was
dear
essentially
God.
flag football.
I was
Yes.
going to go wander in traffic. I had zero interest covering that.
Trev told me the story real quick. Another thing. That game, because you remember the outrage of how it was played. Trev said he got approached in a coffee shop in Lincoln by a fan who was irate of that was not real football, and that's not what he paid to go watch. Now, I told Trev, I said, you should ask him, did you only pay $10 to come see the game? But that was beside the point. This guy was livid. And Trev said, and he said it publicly, he got like a lot of negative feedback on the way the game was played.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Remember
So
Anthony
now-
Grant
and then-
scoring a touchdown, and you didn't even know, like, he kind of broke a tackle, but not really, because he couldn't actually wrap
It
people
was,
up.
it was the Stableford scoring system that they utilized from the Golf International.
Then
Right.
fast forward to a couple of years, and now we're not even going to have a spring game.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
We'll,
What do you think about that, Chris?
I think we'll cover it tomorrow at 10:30 on the Sunday Live Average Joe Sports Show. That is Mark Kraynak. That is Bill Doleman. That is Gary Sharp, Chris Schmidt. See ya. And we still do love you.
Still, you love you guys.
Yeah. Godspeed.